Welcome and welcome back. My name is Esha, and this is a space where I'm kicking it with neighbors from around the net doing great things. And today I have the pleasure of connecting with some Shaw U fam. I
Show
have
you?
my girl Kendra, the owner of K&K Candle Delights, and we are going to see what's going on with her. But if you want to catch up with all things Kendra and her brand, check her out on Instagram at KK underscore Candle Delights. And of course, all that info will be in the description box below. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe because the love is top tier around here. Okay. Welcome to the chat, Kendra. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting. Look at
Yes,
you.
yes, yes. I am so, first of all, I'm always like super giddy if I can get somebody from Shaw on the show because
Mhm.
the backstories that we could tell. But just real quick for the people, I'm just gonna let them know that Kendra and I used to be on a hip hop dance team at Shaw U back in the day. So that is how that's how we met. But
Mhm.
yeah, that was back in our heydays.
Right. Extreme?
Might be, I know, right? Explosion. It might be a video still out there somewhere. I don't know, one of those homecomings.
Oh,
It might
yeah.
be. But we are going to get into a full introduction for the neighbors. So, Kendra, we want to know more about you, more about your brand, and
Mhm.
anything else, any other good news that you want to share with us in the neighborhood.
Yeah, so K&K Candle Delights is it's not just a candle business for me. It started out that way, um,
Hmm.
just as a way for me to do something for myself in terms of self-care and just having something that I'm passionate about doing for me.
Right.
But it kind of blossomed into more of a brand that I wanted to have with a purpose. Just me as a background in my career, I advocate on a daily for a lot of different people, students, families, and so that's just something that's in me. And I want people when they look at K&K Candle Delights to see that I am not just trying to sell you a product. I'm bringing you on my own personal journey because I
Right.
am a work in progress every day. And I want people to see that K&K Candle Delights is a reminder to be
Mhm.
mindful, to be your own advocate, to look out for you and support your own cup. And so if you're on my page, you'll see a lot of stuff that's motivational. You'll see me being transparent about my day's not going as planned. And so that's really what I want K&K Candle Delights to be about. It's not just me selling a product. That's just an extra perk of you getting good quality candles and wax melts, but it's also me wanting to build a community of people who are just everyday people who have so many different roles and sometimes can neglect themselves. And so that's really what my vision and mission is for my business.
That's so awesome. I love, first of all, the whole spill because people, I think, sometimes sleep on how vital something like, candles and, just the overall having a brand that cares about the self-care behind the product. That could be so game changing for your self-care routine and,
Hmm.
just aromatherapy in general. If people are not familiar with aromatherapy and how actually that is a real thing. It is a real therapeutic practice that does have
Hmm.
lots of medicinal benefits, and speaking of, your candles are soy, right? If I'm not
Right.
mistaken. So
Hmm.
what was that one of the motivating factors behind the brand, or wanting to kind of maintain that space of self-care and mindfulness, or was that just something that you just was like, I'm just gonna make soy candles?
So yeah, when I first started making candles, I had to do a lot of research because
Mhm.
it is a lot that goes into making a candle.
Right,
And just depending on it's a science to it. It's not you can't
right,
just get
right.
things and throw it together and think it's gonna be all cute.
Mhm.
So I did a lot of research and I really wanted my products to be as um sustainable as possible, good for the environment. And just in that research, I learned that soy wax is a type of wax that is a little bit more biodegradable and better suited for the home.
Right.
And so in my candles, I don't use dye. I don't use a lot of the glitter and the shimmers on my candles may
Yeah.
not look as glamorous or pretty or aesthetic as other candles out there, and that's fine. I really wanted to stay true to being as minimalist as possible
Mhm.
and giving customers an experience, but also making it safe. Because for me, I have kids, I have a dog. So
Mhm.
I don't want that in the air in my home. And so I want the same for my customers who enjoy those type of candles to be able to feel like and know that when they do purchase, I'm really doing my best to make sure when it gets to their home, I'm not
Mhm.
putting those toxins in their environment.
That is beautiful. Shout out to K and K Candle Delights for being so very health conscious of not just themselves, but of customers. Because like me personally, I'm one of those people who doesn't, or I've stopped over the years buying candles because of, learning about those different toxins that are in them and actually
Mhm,
seeing the effects of it on my own body. Like I can tell when I light a candle if there are
mhm,
synthetics in it. I just have very sensitive, smell, and then my allergies will flare up a certain way when it's exposed to certain smells and synthetics.
mhm.
So I can really, as a customer, appreciate when companies really do think about that. And me being a mom as well, also considering the fact that children may be in your home, pets may be in the home, and we are inhaling those things. Lord
Right,
knows we
yeah.
have abuse, toxins and everything else. So we don't need it in our self care plans, okay?
Right. No.
So thank you for that. I actually have tried your room sprays. I really, really love. I had two of them. I can't remember the other one I had, but the one I held on so tightly to, girl, was the white tea. Okay,
Oh,
that white
yeah.
tea was really doing it for me. I
Uh-huh.
love it. I personally love the minimalist design this because it fits with any decor. If you're
Mhm.
one of those aesthetic girlies who really care about things just kind of working well together. It's very
Exactly.
unique in design, and I love it. I actually really love it. So yes, girl, it is good the way that it is, and
Okay, yeah,
do your
and I
thing.
think that's key too because I feel like, the candle business, just like any other business, is oversaturated. So you can get caught up in trying to hop on a trend or trying to look like another business, but if you are not authentic to what you want and stick to what your vision is, then it's not going to work. And so that's something that I have held on to, sticking to what I started with. I may change my labels every now and then, but I think that everyone has a preference, and the customers that are meant for you will find you and stick with you. So,
Yes, that is so true. I talk about authenticity all the time, especially as an entrepreneur, and staying true to yourself has definitely been one of the biggest for me personally, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs can speak to this, has definitely been one of the biggest changing factors in my own self-care plan, not trying to keep up with, the Joneses or what everybody else
mhm,
is doing, because that is stressful and it is exhausting, and it really, as they say, comparison is the thief of joy. So you end up
yeah,
really you living somebody else's brand, somebody else's story, and that's honestly hard to kind of connect with customers in a true way because you're not really being true to yourself. So I appreciate you
yeah.
being authentic, girly. Yes,
They can see past the BS even on social media, and
absolutely.
it's expensive. It's expensive to try to do
Okay.
all the things. Like we're not out here wasting money now.
No,
So,
ma'am. No, we are not. And speaking of, the cost of your products is something else that I definitely appreciate. Now, again, we know everything ain't for everybody, but I do love when I can find a brand that I really, really enjoy. It checks everything off my list, especially when it comes to things like candles and room sprays. And, it's something that I don't have to just wait till payday to treat myself to. Like I
mhm,
can afford to stock up if I want to. And that was something else that was vital to developing a self-care plan. And I heard you mention having something that is sustainable, and to me that is part of having a sustainable self-care plan, is making sure that you can keep up the routines and the things
mhm.
that you enjoy to curate a space and an environment that feels good to you. Thank you for that as well.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for it's hard to put out the price because it's like the price is the price, but
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know, but like you said, I I want to cater to my target audience is those who are working, those who are everyday people. And so
Mhm.
I don't want to be out here selling a candle for $80 because I mean I wouldn't buy a candle for $80. So how can
Right.
I expect someone to do that for me? Like I want this to be something realistic. So I appreciate that.
No problem, no problem. We are getting to the part of the show, and this is so good because it's right on cue where I talk about just different gems that I feel would be beneficial to the neighbors out there listening, but also stuff that comes from personal experience. And it's called Chat Back and Chew. And so, on the last few episodes, I've talked about being vulnerable and being real with ourselves. So, again, like it's right up there with the authenticity. And we've talked about reinventing. And I want you to, if you can, share with me how you went from where you were pre-pandemic to K and K candles coming about and to where you are now with it. Tell me about that journey, that pivot into this business, because I know that sometimes life will throw us curveballs, and instead of spiraling, we should try our best to use that as a pivot to move and power forward. So, can you tell me about a time that has happened for you? in the last couple of years?
Yes. Well, I started my business, and it really wasn't an official business, but I started researching and playing around with K&K candle delights before it was that back in 20 it was, let's see, December 2019. So right before the pandemic is when
Okay.
I started to make candles. And it was more so for myself. I just was working and a mom and a wife, and I just found myself going through the motions,
Mhm.
and I couldn't answer the question of who is Kendra.
Mm,
And that really struck a nerve because I'm like, if all of this is taken away from me today, like what would I be? Like I couldn't figure that out. And so um I tried a lot of things. I journaled, I went to therapy, um started different craft ideas, just trying my own little self-care routine. I was throwing a lot of
yeah.
things at the wall to figure out um how to get feel like myself again.
Mhm.
And so I started that December 2019. I liked the process, so I started to research, make candles for family and friends. And then fast forward to the pandemic.
Mhm.
I was at the time I was working at a high school,
Uh-huh.
and we were all shut down. We were trying, every school district was going crazy trying to figure out the whole virtual thing because that
Yeah,
was not a thing at that
yeah.
time.
Yeah,
And
that was a
so
time.
yeah, that was a time. Um, and so throughout that process, I learned during a team meeting call that I was not returning back to that school. So I pretty
Oh,
much
wow.
found out on a call with everyone. All, our faces are all on on
Oh,
Zoom.
no.
That I was not returning, and it was I think the principal was like, "Yeah, Kendra, we wish you the best, and we hope, that that everything works out and blah blah blah." And I just played it off like I knew. And so I'm like,
Yeah,
"Oh yeah, well, I appreciate it." Because at that time things were up in the air.
yeah,
But I was never told that I was going to be let go. The
yeah.
conversations were we're figuring it out.
Mhm.
Don't worry about it. My coworkers are vouching for me. And so I'm thinking,
Mhm.
we're good. And so I'm
Yeah,
playing it off and I'm like, oh, like, wow. And so at that moment, it, I'm like, okay, well, the world is shut down. I don't have a job after July.
yeah.
And so what do I do now?
Mhm,
I have two daughters. They're young. I have a 1-year old and a 3-year old. So
mhm.
I'm like, what do I do now? And so in being at home, I feel like that was probably it was a blessing. It was difficult, but it was a blessing because it forced me to really do the work for
Yeah,
myself, to really
yeah.
look into the mirror and figure out I could either sit in this and I could either feel sorry for myself,
Mhm.
or I can do what I've done time and time again in my life and get back up and make something shake. And so
Yes.
having
Look
that
at
time
you.
off, having that time off, I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing I feel like it's funny because it was great, but I swear everybody was a business owner when the
Mhm.
pandemic happened, and I'm like, so now I have that against me because I have no entrepreneurial experience. I don't have a background in business, and so
Yeah.
now I'm being looked at as everyone that just jumped on this business bandwagon, when
Mhm.
really it was something I was kind of working on and exploring. And so for
Yeah.
me, it was a lot of trial and error, just trying to network. I think social media really blew up. There were a lot of different business groups. And so I
Mhm.
found a group. I want to do a little shout out to Black Candle
Yeah. Yeah, go
Makers
ahead.
Club.
Hey, shout out to them.
They, yes, so it's Black owned, and it's for people like us who are in the candle space. And I feel like finding that group really helped me navigate to make sure
Shout
that I set up my foundation for my business.
Uh-huh.
And so it just kind of went from there. It wasn't easy. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've made it to the other side. It's an
Right.
everyday thing. It's a marathon. Um, and so I think over the last 5 years, I've really learned more about myself. I've
Mhm.
learned about who I want to be as a business owner and as a brand, and what I want people to get out of my business. And in doing that self reflection, and really sitting down and figuring out what I wanted my business to be, that's kind of how I stumbled upon wanting it to be a brand that advocated for mental health and well-being, and making sure that the person who